Hello and welcome all of you to the 2024 mains PYQ discussion by NIVAS. The theme for today is Industrial Revolution. It's a theme from world history, and the question goes like this: how far was the Industrial Revolution in Britain responsible for the decline of handicrafts and cottage industries in India? It's a 15-mark question for 250 words. The question has an analytical statement. How far is the Industrial Revolution in Britain responsible for the decline of handicrafts and cotton industries in India? So this analytical statement has to be supported as well as disputed. You have to check how far is it relevant. So you have to give arguments for it and against it. On the outset, you have to start by defining what Industrial Revolution is in the first place. Now let's see how the introduction can be framed. We have designed this question in three parts. First part is we are substantiating the statement. How far is it responsible? We are giving arguments for that. In the second part, we are talking about the positive externalities of Industrial Revolution. For example, Industrial Revolution has supported the decline of handicrafts and cottage industries, but it has worked in favor of that as well. It has caused the decline, but it had some positive externalities as well. So we'll bring that factors as well as the second part of our answer. And finally, we'll give other factors that are responsible for the decline of handicrafts, which are not necessarily linked to decline of Indian industries. So three parts is the way that we have designed this question. We'll look at the introduction first. The introduction will be marking the time period of Industrial Revolution, which is late 18th century. We'll also give a value addition with respect to the breakthrough inventions, which is steam engine by James Watt. We will refer to this particular invention and we will set the tone of this question. We can say that Industrial Revolution took kick-started in Britain with the invention of breakthrough inventions like steam engine by James Watt in the late 18th century. It modernized manufacturing sector in the entire world and has a devastating impact on Indian handicrafts and cottage industries. So we can have an introduction for 4-5 lines for such a question, which is a 15 marker. And in the first part, as I said, we'll give arguments in favor of this. The first and foremost point is with respect to the monopoly of the English East India Company. So we know that India was ruled by the East India Company until the Act of Good Governance in 1858. And this company had absolute monopoly when it comes to trade in India. So this monopoly resulted in a lack of fair competition. And in a capitalist economy, if you don't have fair competition, it will naturally affect the other industries, which is handicrafts and cottage industries. Second point is the mass machine-made production as part of Industrial Revolution versus the handmade production of handicrafts and cottage industries. So they cannot compete with the mass machine-made production, which is a direct reason. And one example that we have given here is the Dhaka muslin industry's decline. Whatever we have marked in yellow here are effective value additions for this answer. The third very important point is tariff manipulation. So goods that comes to India are duty free and goods that go out of India are charged high duties. So this contradictory manipulation. For example, if you take the Textile Importation Act of 1813 or the Charter Act of 1813, which removed trade barriers for the British goods, this tariff manipulation is very evident. The fourth point is the decline in patronage of artisans. You know that Indian artisans were largely supported by the kings. The decline of patronage due to the decline of the princely states is a major reason for the deindustrialization process. The fifth point is the cultivation of commercial crops for Britain. So industries need raw materials. When Britain forces the Indian laborers to cultivate for their interest, the Indian industries are compromised. For example, the cultivation of indigo solely for the British purpose. The next point is with respect to the revenue policies of Britain. For example, they directed every policy for surplus extraction. Surplus extraction results in lack of surplus for allocation to Indian industries. So when the government or when Indian princely states or when people or investors don't have surplus in their hand, how are they going to invest in industries? So this is a major reason. And the next reason is disruption of traditional trade routes. Indian handicrafts and cottage industries had traditional networks, something like the Silk Route or something like the Indian North-South Corridor, and these routes were disrupted by the British forces in their favor. The last point is the loss of skills over time. This is something that happens over generations. India had a caste system where occupational classification of labor people were there, and this a negative positive externality of this regressive system was the specialization also. But this system was disrupted both because of the social policies as well as all the other reasons. So decline of skills takes place over 2-3 generations, and that has also contributed to the decline. So if you look at this, we have 3 plus 3 plus 2, 8 points in the first part that substantiate this argument. So we'll give reasons in favor. Now we'll look at the positive externalities. First of all is the introduction of Indian railways. We have already seen that Indian traditional trade routes were disrupted. But with the introduction of railways, there was an integrated Indian market which opened the doors for certain industries as well. The second externality is with respect to the new industries. So even though these new industries came for British utility, these were industries in the first place. And some of them were funded and run by the Indian entrepreneurs themselves. For example, the jute industries in Bengal. And finally, the positive externality is entrepreneurship by Indians on British model. A classic example is the still existing Tata Steel, founded in 1907. Now we'll go to the third part where we'll talk about other factors that led to the decline of Indian handicrafts and cottage industries. The first major factor is the demographic shift. In the modern times, after 18th century, we can see a change in demographics. We can see rising urbanization, and we can see a decline of village economies or the self-sufficient village economies, which were fueling force for Indian handicrafts and cottage industries. So this demographic shift also resulted in the decline apart from the industrial revolution. We can also see structural issues of colonization. So colonization is a global process. It involves a lot of things like classism, racism, exploitation, mental trauma. So all these things have contributed to the decline of industries. Finally, westernization. So westernization is a creation of aspiration. When you have aspiration for different interests, you lose pride and interest in your traditional avenues, and that has also contributed to the decline of Indian industries. So we have divided into 3 parts. We have given valid points in 3 parts, and now we are going to conclude this answer where we will talk about the Indian efforts in resistance to the colonial process. The first point will be the resistance by Indian entrepreneurs as part of the freedom movement. For example, the V.O. Chidambaram Pillai initiative of Madrasi steam. So this is the person who is known as Kappalottiya Tamlan, the one who invested in the field of shipping. The second is in terms of Swadeshi movement, where we see the boycott of British goods and a shift. So this was later taken on by people like Mahatma Gandhi in the form of Khadi and Charkha. So we have had resistance as well to this deindustrialization process. If you look at the directive principles of state policy, we have promotion of cottage industries as one of the Gandhian principles. That is also part of this legacy. If you take the Atmanirbhar Bharat initiative or the Make in India campaign, that is also part of reindustrializing a deindustrialized country. So we can connect this with the modern legacy as well to conclude this answer. So I hope the value additions and the overall structure was effective for you in dealing with this answer. Thank you for listening.